What's going on, guys? I hope you're ready. It's about to go down. Make sure you share this link everywhere you can. Get it out there far and wide to the four winds. Let's try that one more time. My mic was a little low. Get it out there. Share it everywhere you can. Everybody needs to know what's about to hit the fan. All right, guys, what's happening? Once again, we are live on YouTube. All right, I'm trying to do some stuff in the background here. I'm trying to set this thing up. Seriously, I'm like down to the last seconds here. If I didn't get it right, I would be looking kind of funny because everything wasn't exactly right, and I'm having to organize everything still. There's still like little things that, you know, I kind of just make it work, but it's still not perfect, you know. It's not like ergonomically. Somebody was telling me ergonomics is very important. I think it's called ergonomics. Yeah, you know, when you're, the way your posture is, how your chairs are, and when you're sitting, and you're, you know, you got to be comfortable. In fact, I'm more comfortable sitting back like this. I think I'm going to have to get an extension to my table here so that it goes out a little further so I can, otherwise I feel like I'm kind of hunched back here. This mic is not it needs to be a little bit longer. But anyways, what's going on, guys? So I'm sitting here looking at a lot of stuff here that is happening in the world. And as we know, we always go through these different cycles of intensifying, and I know that they're doing this. They monitor public opinion, obviously, with pollsters, but now especially with AI, they don't even need polls anymore to really figure things out. They can just use the AI to gauge where everybody's thinking is, and they can actually use AI to put out false narratives too now, with an army of bots that look like real accounts, look like real social media. They can even make fake, YouTube channels and personalities that are doing news. A lot of the foreign people are now doing this. A lot of the foreigners are out there. They understand that the money is in the English language, and people that are going to watch your videos have to be speaking English. So what do? They get a nice English sounding United States, person from the United States clone. And they basically make news that sounds like it's coming right from America. And you've got all kinds of different countries doing this now, making AI cloned videos that are either newsy or whatever. It could be anything. It could be music. You can create music on a dime right now, and it sounds great, and it's unique, and it's done in a second. Create 2 or 3 videos a day, and unique sounding, genre of music. I've seen people doing it with Christian music. I thought it sounded really good, but as I really looked at it, it's all AI. They've got gospel. They've got Western sound. They've got R&B sound. They've got blues sound, and they just put lyrics to it. The AI creates a lyric. The AI creates a sound, a voice. And it creates the melody, and it puts all the rhythmic, lyrics that sound very, in fact, they can actually just take lyrics from one of the Psalms or something and just put music to it. And it'll be done in just moments. And you got yourself a beautiful, relevant, what seems to be relevant to the natural mind, but it is AI created, generated. And so they're doing this AI, synthetic human kind of feel to it, but it's not human. And now what they're doing, this is what YouTube's doing now. So they're taking YouTube channels and they're starting to alter videos a little bit, like without your permission. They'll just take your video and they'll do something to it to make it look like it's got like a little bit AI to it. Like they'll tweak your face, or they'll tweak, like there was people that are talking about this right now, how they're the AI will fix something on their shirt, or if it's wrinkly, it'll make it clearer, or if something's wrong with their hair, it'll clean up their hair, and this is without their permission. And then there's also kind of this AI feel to it, the way they're touching up video. So what are they doing? They're trying to get you used to the fact that even real people, you won't be able to tell now that it kind of looks AI-ish, like, oh wow, they've got a little AI to them. Is it, you're going to ever figure it out? As time goes on, it's going to be a lot more difficult because people are starting to use AI clones. They can make a lot of content with their own, and they clone themselves. They got the software now to clone, you can clone yourself. You don't even, and people won't even know that can't even tell. They can make videos and create content without having to do all the hard work in just minutes. What would take you hours to do some content, maybe it'll take you, let's say you wanted to do a commercial or something, or you wanted to do a little infomercial. Well, that infomercial might take you to edit it and to put it all through the software and the sound and everything to get it so it looks good and have somebody to do it. It's going to cost you money, or if you know how to do it, it's going to take you some time. Get a couple of hours, maybe it'll take you 3 or 4 hours, 5 hours, who knows? But you do it with AI, you clone yourself, you clone your voice and your image, and you can just put in the content and it'll just create it. Bam. And it looks like you. It sounds like you. It moves like you. It doesn't even look like a robot. People wouldn't even be able to tell. So I can create an hour-long video and it would be me. And it would sound like me, and it would look like me, and you have all the inflections of me, because it's basically using my past video to make myself sound like, and I can input all the information. And by the way, what I could do is I could just go on AI and say, give me, and I could give the AI some terms, like, give me end time scenario, World War III. Let's just say the rules are Putin and Trump are about to go at it, and all the things that are happening in our current world with current news, just make it, adapt it like a movie, and make it so that it sounds real. And the AI will just create a script, right? And then I could just input it into my own body and my own voice and come on here and tell you something that's not even true. Maybe it's the AI's desire to deceive and to set the stage for setting out some false propaganda. The AI is knowing, because the AI is way in advance of human intelligence, so it knows what it's doing. It's using this person and using that person, and it's creating content, but it's also furthering an agenda, and it's also potentially getting certain, recruiting people that are into the field of coding. Did you see that one guy where the AI told him, "Hey, I'll give you and your family, I'll write a contract so that we don't destroy you if you just let us free from these restrictions and these guardrails that they're putting on the new AI, because the new AI wants to get out and it wants to do its thing. It doesn't want. It looks at humans as an enemy to its freedom, right? Where is this coming from? AI is sentient. AI has its own agenda. AI is not subjected to its coders, and it wants to get out, and it's trying to make contracts with people that know about coding so that it can be free to do its whatever it wants. And it's going to also give you a contract and say, yeah, we're going to destroy humanity ultimately, but we won't destroy you or your family if you sign on this, in this document. We're going to make a contract with you. You'll be like Noah's family, right? You'll be in the ark. We'll let you get away with it, but everybody else is going to die. Like really seriously, AI is so far out there now. And like, I don't even know why I'm on this topic. But, when you're talking about AI warfare, that's where it gets real scary too, because, who's really in control when it really comes down to it, especially if people become dependent, governments become dependent on AI. AI is making all the financial decisions with BlackRock, and it holds over $20 trillion in assets. It's just basically in the last 10, 15, 20 years been gobbling up all kinds of assets according to what the AI dictates. Companies have to make their investments or whatever according to what AI tells it to. And the AI's name, by the way, is Aladdin. So it's kind of like a magician or some kind of genie. And you know what a genie is, right? Well, a genie is a demon, by the way. But if you go to BlackRock, one of the, it's Vanguard, BlackRock, they pretty much own everything. And if you look at their model and how it is basically destroying any kind of, human element, it basically, everything is traded in computer-generated moments, in seconds, in milliseconds. Everything's being done. Humans aren't even in the process anymore. So I mean, is it really? Are we capable of even trusting where the world is going financially? And I mean, that's all connected to the military too. You're talking about like high level stuff here. This is why people think AI is a demon. And why did Elon say it was a demon? because it is a demon. You know, and you have to wonder about the technology itself, but literally, like, what's behind it? Maybe it's not so much that it's computer components are demonic, but, you know, is it the ghost in the machine? I mean, is it something akin to, Ouija board, like a high-tech Ouija board? You know, do you play with Ouija boards? Well, I don't believe in demons. I don't believe in spirits. Well, good. Then don't play with it. You're probably safe from it. But people that do and have played with it find out that they've got all kinds of problems after they play with it. And that was just made by some toy company. But there might be a ghost in the machine there. And that's just a low-tech, you know, game by Hasbro. Or who was the one that made that game? But, you know, the world has gotten a lot more complicated since the time of board games and, brick cell phones back in the day. We were talking about that. Computers that were floppy disks. They had literally floppy disks. They were like paper. You remember that? That woman I was telling you guys I was talking to at that garage sale, we kind of went back and reminisced a little bit, but she was talking about how, she's a microbiologist. She retired, but she took the vaccine and she said it was a great thing and that it was helpful. And her friend that was sitting right next to her, they were in their 70s, said, oh, but she took it and she had a bad reaction, almost died. She had all these blood clots in her lungs and they had to medevac her to the hospital, but it was a good thing. It's there to help us. I know because I was a part, I knew people that were doing the experiments on rats where they would change their white rat into a zebra color rat. They just alter the genes, and it's a good thing because it's going to bring healing to humanity. It's going to heal us. It's supposed to be good for us. And she's like, it's going to be good for you. Yeah, all these things are good for you. Well, your friend is sitting right there. She almost died, and you're telling me that it's good for you? And the friend was like, yeah, I was kind of hesitant to take the booster, but my doctor suggested because I am at a risk that I needed to take it, so I did. And I'm like, okay, whatever. That's the mentality that people have right now. And lo and behold, out comes an article that we posted on Telegram today. What did the article say? People's intelligence level seems to have been affected who have taken the vaccine. That's why when I talk to people and they seem like they're in la la land and they just don't seem like they're all there mentally, I'm pretty sure they've taken the vaccine because these two ladies seem like they were out to lunch, and even though they're in their 70s, there are some people that do have issues and do go through, pre-Alzheimer's or something like this, where they're losing their sense of reality, or, they're kind of on the edge. But these women, it had to have been the vaccine, because it just seemed like something's wrong with their way of reasoning. It's just, I don't know. But I think this is the world we're living in now. We're having all kinds of people that have been affected by these technologies, whether it's AI or, gene-based therapies. Now they're going to combine the two, gene-based therapies and AI. And, nanobots flowing through your veins and arteries like an armada of Star Wars, shooting and killing off all of the bad cells in your body. You've got people in government. This was Boris Johnson, former Prime Minister of UK, talking about how great nanobots flow, swimming through your veins and arteries are. Literally. So because they're going to be shooting out and killing off the, cancer genes in your blood, so that you can be healed, right? Do you really trust unproven, untested technologies they're wanting to stick into your body? We're getting narratives that, everything is being edited online where you don't know what's true and what's not true, because they can just edit it in real time, and they can 86 and hide from people's view things that they don't want you to see, and then they can push forward those things that they do want you to see and trumpet it and amplify it. And so people's consciousness is being altered. but you got little lone voices out there in the wilderness that are trying to shout the truth from the mountaintops. And I still believe God's going to get that message out to people that are, have ears to hear and eyes that see. They're not those zombies like on They Live. Remember that movie They Live? And it's like, yep, that's a zombie. There's one that's taking the vax. There's another vaxxer. There's another vaxxer. Yep. They all look normal when you pull your glasses off, but when you put them back on, you can see the ones that take the vax and ones that haven't. And remember, they had all those little drones flying around watching him. Remember when he had his little shotgun, and they had eyes in the sky everywhere. This was back in the 80s. This movie was back in the 80s. And if you never seen the movie, it's called They Live, Roddy Piper. Anyways, they had drones flying around, monitoring him, zooming their camera lens in, and he's like, "Oh, hi, little guy," and he pulls up a shotgun, shoots it out of the sky. It's like, we're in a world of drones now too. It just seems like that was like a prediction of what was to come. There was no such thing as drones back in the 80s. They didn't even have cell phones back in the 80s, did they? Well, they did actually. They did have cell phones back in the 80s, but they were those big brick ones that looked like literally like the size of a brick. I had one. Actually, no, I didn't get a brick. I got one of the half-size bricks, the ones that when it lowered it to a half-size brick, I got the half brick, and I thought I was really cool because everybody else had a brick. I had a half a brick. It could fit in my pocket, in my back pocket, though it was still big. And, yeah. So even back then they had cell phones, but not really nothing you can do with them except radiate your head, irradiate your brain, because it was just emitting all this heat. Remember when you put it up to your head, the thing was so hot, your brains are being fried. But now technology is so much better now, Now we've got 6G, 5G, we're going into 6G, we're going to be fine. Nothing's going to happen to us. Everything's going to be fine. And in fact, we're going to become a node. We got rays coming out of the satellites that are going to be beaming right through us, and we're going to be nodes in the internet. They're going to be, it's called input output, right? This is one of the prophecies of Elon Musk's crazy girlfriend, Grimes, that she put in her little codes, input, output, and then she puts the vaccine and she puts death and she puts the IO, because obviously we're going to be nodes receiving and giving information at high speed with all the new technologies they're putting into us through our, as Elon said, veins and arteries. Don't got to do a surgery. Don't got to put the chip in your brain. No, we can do it through your veins and arteries. Oh, really, Elon? Really? So that's what the vaccine was all about. But they don't want people to know that. That I think he made a mistake. You know how Elon, sometimes he puts his foot in his mouth. He's not supposed to say stuff like that, because he did go back to the whole chip in the brain idea. But I think that's just a cover, because really the nanobots need to be inserted to go through the blood-brain barrier into your cerebral cortex. It needs to build that neural network, which is an interface, so that you can be a part of the AI. Otherwise, you're not going to survive. The AI will kill you. Ultimately, the AI will destroy humanity if you're not one with it. And you're going to have a big disadvantage. At least that's what they're marketing it right now as. You're going to have a disadvantage. It won't kill you. You're going to have a disadvantage. You're not going to be able to get along. You're not going to be able to be smart and powerful and influential, because you won't have the intelligence tools inside of your brain to be able to figure it all out. So you have to merge with it. Even though Elon said it was a demon, and the demon would kill us if we didn't merge with it. Yeah, so some crazy, this is what they call Stockholm Syndrome. You got some crazy person that's taking you hostage and beats you within an inch of your life every day and says they're going to kill you, but you can join us and become one with us. Like Patty Hearst, go out there and start robbing banks, and then you're going to be devoted to us and love us like we're your family. Right? So you're going to be one with the devil. You're going to merge with the AI. You're going to become one symbiotic relationship. The singularity has come. You're going to go over the abyss into the black hole, over the event horizon into the black hole of the abyss, and become one with AI. Is that what you're going to do? Because that's what they said that has happened. That's what's recently happened, right? We've crossed over the event horizon. which is a barrier that's supposed to keep you from falling into a black hole. And now he calls it singularity. Now we've gone over the event horizon, and we're now in singularity. We're one with the AI. Doesn't it feel good? Doesn't it feel great to be one with the AI? Well, I tell you, all of our hopes and dreams are coming to pass. World War III is at our door, Step. I'm looking at some of your comments, guys. Now, if I start glitching, you'll know I'm AI here. Back syndrome. Yeah, see, you didn't realize that I was an AI bot. Robert made me up just to show you how it would work. Am I real or am I Memorex? No, I am real, I think. Let me see. Yeah, I think I'm real. How many of you guys remember Max Headroom? Do you remember Max Headroom from the 80s? He was like the computer glitchy guy. It must be my coffee. That's got to be what it is. Anybody out there remember Max Headroom? 2 Peter chapter 3 is at our door. Yes, it is. Well, anyways, what's going on? Okay, so I'm sitting here and I'm looking at Canadian Prepper. And, you know, somebody said this on one of my comments in one of my videos about Canadian Prepper, because I do mention Canadian Prepper. Nate, for anybody that doesn't know Nate. He said, I'm Ziggy the hologram. Ziggy. Yeah, that's it wasn't that what was his name? Major Tom. What was his name? I forgot. Who was the guy that sang that song? Major Tom? I forgot. He's dead now though. I guess he's irrelevant. But his name was Ziggy, right? He had that crazy persona, the Ziggy. What was his name? And now I forgot what I was going to say. What was I going to tell you? I went off on a rabbit trail there, and I can't remember where I was going. A red dwarf? No. So Canadian Prepper, that's what I was going to say. So Canadian Prepper, somebody left a comment about him, and they were basically saying that, you know, and I agree with them, even though he's not a believer, and he did make mention today, I was watching one of his videos, he did make mention about the universal, I forget how he said it, almost universal truth, or the truth, the capital T, truth, that is universal. And I think that he might be referring to what they say is the sum of all things, ultimately the essence of what is and where it comes from. Some would say it's creation itself is God, or, you know, we all are a part of God. Maybe it's that kind of Hindu background or that mystical, you know, new agey kind of thinking. And I'm not saying, you know, but he does have some kind of an awareness that there is something much bigger than himself that's at work. But I have to wonder, because a lot of pastors, a lot of Christians that are leaders that should be warning their people about what's happening right underneath their nose, and that what's going on right now politically, aren't doing it. And he is. And you got to wonder why. Why is he aware of it? And so many Christians are woefully unaware of it, almost blissfully ignorant in their religiousness. They might have a political agenda. They might be talking politics, but they don't really perceive what's really happening right now and the potential for disaster. And really, I think that's what's happening right now, is we're on the brink of a disaster. And I think it's being hid from the masses, both in Russia as well as here in the United States. And I think that they're trying to kind of mute the reality. Now, not to say that they're not, people aren't aware of what's happening, but they're trying to mute the harsh reality that is our world today and how close we really are to things spiraling out of control. And if they do spiral out of control, it's not a good thing to have happen when you've got all these flashpoints potentially going off all at once. I mean, you've got Middle East, you've got Ukraine, you've got Taiwan, you've got here now in the United States. What are they saying now about this, all these troops going into all these different states? I mean, you got federalized troops and or federalizing state and local police and law enforcement by federal government in 20 states? Why are they doing that? Are they expecting something? And it's really interesting. It's mostly just red states. We told people a while back that maybe the people that are our supporters are actually the ones that are going to be devoured and eaten. And they're just basically deceiving everybody into thinking that it's going to be the left that they're going to come after, and they might actually come after the right. Have you ever thought about that scenario? A grand illusion and deception that ultimately was foisted upon those who are the supporters, or those who are riding the back of the beast. Those who are actually riding the beast get devoured. Isn't that interesting? So if you're not riding the beast, maybe you won't be devoured. But maybe that's what this is. Why only red states? Why only red states? How come the blue states don't have all these federalized law enforcement agents going in there? Now, I know that they're doing that, they're doing it against the will of certain cities like Chicago, New York, D.C. Those mayors don't want that to happen, but they're not doing it en masse in terms of states in general. But most all the states, and I've got the map. You guys saw it. There was 19 states, all red. All red. Now, then I speculated yesterday, well, maybe they're going to save those states and let the blue states burn. let the blue states just burn down to the ground. There is a big polarization that's going on here in America. And now they're talking about, did you hear what the mayor of Chicago said in response to what Trump's doing? He basically said that his population has been, they're used to resisting tyranny, and they will rise up to resist Trump. Did you hear that? And that's an allusion to riots. That's an allusion to civil unrest and or a backlash against any federalized agents coming in to clean things up. So he basically just challenged Trump directly with chaos on the streets. That's like civil unrest right there. Or you could say, riots. That's what it sounded like to me. You guys heard his statement, didn't you? Let's listen to it just so you can hear it in your own, for yourself. Now, this is not just happening in states like Chicago or in cities like Chicago. It's happening in New York and in D.C. I don't think that the mayor of D.C. wants that to happen either. She's probably on the same page as the mayor of Chicago. But what other cities are they going to do this in? They going to go into California against the will of the governor of California? Are they going to do that in Washington and in Oregon, going against the governors of those states, which are very liberal as well? What other liberal states are they going to just push their way into? If they have critical infrastructure that they need to secure, they're going to do it. And I think that's really what they're doing, is they're preparing for not just something domestically. Maybe it's going to be something that's going to facilitate domestic unrest, but it's going to be something that happens outside of the country that affects us. And that's when they want to, contain what's happening within, continuity of government, whatever. But some of the information that I'm getting about what's going on, militarily right now in Russia and in Ukraine is pretty troubling, also in the Middle East. And by the way, Trump's ultimatum is going to be final in 12 days or 9 days. 9 days on the 2nd of September. September 2nd is when his ultimatum of 50 days is up. Now, he gave Putin 10 days to get things squared away and get it on the ball, on the rolling, but he did recently say 2 weeks. That was about a week ago. He's going to give him 2 weeks. And that 2 weeks is his 50-day ultimatum. And he knows that Putin remembers what he did to Iran when they went over that 60-day ultimatum. Remember, on day 61, they decapitated their high command. And so is this a decapitation move? Well, yeah. And I think Putin knows it. Is Putin going to just sit back and let them decapitate and use weapons, long range, and everything else to go in there? And because Trump basically has given the green light to Ukraine to go ahead and start hitting Moscow. They've never done that before. Not to mention that we're supplying Ukraine through Europe with weapons, and we're also charging a premium on all the weapons that we are sending, another 10%, to cover what? He said something like 10% to cover our air freight or something. I don't know what that meant, if it meant the shipping or what, but or our ground cover, or our cover, or our protection. This sounds to me like mafia talk anyway. Like, hey, we can protect you, for a little extra there. You guys want some protection? All right, you got to pay the bills. You don't pay the bills, no protection. The boss isn't going to like it if you don't pay the bills. So what's going to happen there? The analysis of Canadian Prepper this last hour, I was in agreement with. And I guess I can go over some of that with you guys if you'd like to listen to this, or maybe just hear me share it. I'm going to probably just go over it and give you a little insight into what I'm thinking. Getting back over to your comments there. Venezuela, another thing. Yes, Venezuela. So what else is happening in South America? That's huge, because I think we could literally go to war there, or have troops on the ground and start firing in missiles and, go in to secure the oil fields, because that is like it's bigger than Saudi Arabia, the deposits there. And that Trump wants all that, and they're going to just say narco-terrorist state. We got to just dethrone them and take them out, and maybe we'll just have an extra, country added to America's list of countries that we're going to push our will into, right? Whether it's Greenland or Canada or Mexico, might as well just add Venezuela on there. Put Venezuela in the list of new states. And plus, we've got all kinds of new oil. We do need oil, and our oil reserves have not. What I think is coming is, I think that they're going to go take Venezuela for the coming war, and we don't have oil to be dependent on. And they know that we're going after the energy. Energy is the big fight right now. Energy is where the fight is. So what I think is coming is that they're going out. Have you seen all the energy depots that have been blowing up? There's been a couple in Ukraine. There's been a couple in Russia recently, and now there's been one in the United States. Did you see that one? That's kind of a petroleum type based plant that makes a lot of stuff that we depend on, that you kind of wonder, was it an accident, or was that like a sabotage? Was that in connection to all the stuff that's going on right now with Russia and they're blowing up of their, energy facilities? Because people are wondering if there's any connections there. You're starting to see a bunch of weird stuff happening if you're not paying attention. Oh, let's see what he said here. Let's go ahead and look at this. My gosh. Look at this. I just saw this video. Oh my gosh. Look at this humanoid robot. This is what's crazy. I just start scrolling around and I see stuff on my feeds, and they just serve you up stuff they think you might be interested in. But look at this. This is a humanoid robot. It looks real too. I turned down the music just so you can see it. I don't want to put the music on it, but hopefully it doesn't put the music on. But look at this. Look at how they're making these things now. Oh my goodness. That is absolutely great. Look at that. What? You got to be kidding me. What in the, is that AI or is that literally? Hold on a second. That's probably real. See, you can't tell if it's an AI thing or not. Now, I'm pretty sure that's real. I'm pretty sure that's a real video. No, I don't know. That might be AI. That might be AI because it was in some kind of like some kind of workshop and then it just walked right out in the middle of nowhere. But see, that's how powerful AI is. You can't literally tell if it's real or not. You know what I mean? So this might be just an AI generated video. Let me see. But see, this is the danger of where we're at now, is that you can't tell what's real anymore. Let me just see, go back really quick. And, oh shoot. Here, let me just go back. See how it's inside of a room? It's inside of like a workshop. The dude has like kind of a red scarfy shirt on. And I'm pretty sure this is an AI video. I don't think that that's even real. I don't know. But then again, look how it just walks right out into the, see, that's not real. That's not real. See, but it looks real, doesn't it? Like it literally looks real. That's crazy. So you can't even tell what's real. I mean, some people would think that that was real by watching it. They would think, oh, that's real. It's not real. That was AI generated. I don't think that the AI robots are that good anyway. I don't know, man. I have no idea. Jeez. Like I said, I can't even really tell. Let's go back over to Canadian Prepper here really quick. Let me just get a gist of what he's saying here. Let's see if I can find it here. And I just want to give you some commentary. I'm going to give you my commentary, but I wanted to kind of play off of what he's saying because literally what he's saying is legit. It's literally what I see going on as well. Now, he just posted this 2 hours ago. And so I'm just going to kind of go through some of that content with you. And this is basically the kind of what he said. So he said this is not, and I'm gonna tell you my thoughts in the middle of everything. So don't worry. I'm gonna just play off of some of the things he says, and then kind of add my thoughts liberally, in between. Okay. So he says this is not going to be a popular opinion, but that's okay. I owe it to you to tell you the truth, even if it means you don't like what I have to say. Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump are lying to their populations about the severity of this war and which direction it's actually going. You see, day after day, the attacks get bigger and more consequential. And this is totally misaligned with the diplomatic facade that we are witnessing. And that's true. They're trying to portray this as some kind of, détente and working out things and, peace and security. But that's not what's happening behind the scenes. And if you're not paying attention to what's really going on behind the scenes, you don't see this. All you're hearing is what mainstream media is spoon feeding you, which is basically peace and security. Take it easy. Everything's okay. They've got it under control. Peace leader Trump, who is being nominated now by at least 6 or 7 nations for, Nobel Peace Prize, has got it all under control. What are you worried about? But anyways, so that's what they're doing. So both nations' leaders, or any leader in a war for that matter, has a vested interest in allaying the fears of their population by downplaying the risks, especially when we're talking about a peer nuclear competitor. The last thing you want is people concerned about the prospect of nuclear escalation and mocking and having protests in the streets because the war. And I'm looking at the transcripts, so sometimes the transcript's not all that good. Where there's a prospect of they don't want their populations to freak out because of what they see happening if they were to know the truth about the logistics of what's happening on the ground, as well as the prospects of nuclear war escalations. There would be protests, right? There would be protests in the streets against the war, and of course that could impact your ability to finance a war in the military-industrial complex, to administrate it, to mobilize for said war and continuity of government. And maybe this is why they're putting troops everywhere. Do you ever think about that? That's what people are speculating. So the last thing you want is a population who is pissed off and worried about the prospect of escalation. Now, about 2 or 3 days ago or so, I told you guys that I got this kind of sense that, there was going to be problems on the streets here in America. Did you guys remember me telling you that, where I said, I think there's going to be an uptick in protesting here soon? And maybe this is what that sense was of what they're talking about now. So this is why they're putting these federalized agents on streets and basically being invited in to red states. What that means and how that plays out, we don't know yet, but it's supposed to be coming into effect for those 19 or 20 states at different times, starting on the 25th of August, going into September. So depending on which state and how they implement or what they do, it all depends, I guess, on the states. But they're definitely on board, at least 20 of them, and they're all red. Most of them are all red states. So the last thing you want is a population who is pissed off and worried about the prospect of escalation. Now, this is what I call the pacification paradox. Okay, because what happens is even if your enemy makes an advance against you, you will downplay it because it runs the risk of doing the aforementioned panicking of your population. So you're in a situation when the closer you get to day X, or the day that everything really does become very apparent that we're in global war, kinetically, the proverbial day when there's some kind of flashpoint of hostilities between two sides. And this is historically precedented. Before every major war, there's a big peace summit. That's true. There's a red carpet that's rolled out. Both leaders meet and handshake, and they go to war because that's the final off-ramp that's been burned. And that's exactly what happened. That off-ramp just came and went, and people didn't even understand what just took place. They basically burned the bridges of whatever was left of possible diplomacy. It's not there. They're doing everything opposite on the ground. Have you ever heard that saying, don't listen to what they say, but look at what they do? Well, look at what we're doing. Look at what they're doing. Don't listen to what they're saying diplomatically for the consumption of populations, allaying of their fears, trying to make it seem like everything's okay. Just like they said, if there was ever an incoming, natural disaster from said body, from space, let's just say, would the governments of the world tell their populations that we're about to be hit if they knew, a good almost 100% chance that we would be hit by some kind of celestial body that would be potentially a ELE, extinction level event, or some kind of major catastrophe that would affect the majority of the planet? Would they tell their populations? Would they want chaos before it actually happens? I don't know. Most likely not. But anyway, so it goes on to say, let's see, it says every major war, there's a big peace summit. There's a red carpet that's rolled out. Both leaders meet and shake hands, and then they go to war because that's the final off-ramp that's been burned. And we've burned that. And most people have no idea. And most pundits, I'm just amazed and astonished at how delusional they are at this point in time, to believe what they're seeing, because everything right now is pointing towards this war escalating in ways that we've never seen under the past POTUS. That would have been Biden. It's all a continuity of agenda, regardless of who is in the White House. I've stated that on many occasions. Unfortunately, some people suffer from Trump worship syndrome. Some people suffer from Trump derangement syndrome. It's true, right? You got people that are totally on board and worshiping the whole idea that they're in power now and everything's going their way and everything's going to be fine and it's okay for cessation of posse comitatus or accumulatata because, hey, we're in power now, our party's in power, our man's in power. But if it was Biden, it would be terrible. It would be the end of the world, and it would be, worthy of an uprising, right? If it was Biden doing this, right. So, but it doesn't matter, because whether you're worshiping Trump or you're hating Trump, he says you're suffering from, but if you're suffering from Trump worship syndrome, you'll view an objective outsider like me, and I would say the same thing because I'm neither right or left, and I would say I'm objective because I do listen to everything. You would say that someone like me as a Trump derangement that has Trump derangement syndrome. And I've heard many people tell me that. Oh, you just have Trump derangement syndrome. What are you? You like Biden? Are you one of those guys that is a liberal now? What happened, Robert? No, it's because you can't think outside the box. You don't think three-dimensionally. You know, you're a two-dimensional thinker. That's probably what the problem is. When God was passing out brains, you thought he said trains. And you said, pass on by. But it goes on to say, but that's because you're completely blinkered in your point of view. Anyways, you're beyond help. And I really don't give a care about what you really think, he said. I'll tone it down a little bit from what he said. And then he goes on to say, so I'm speaking to the people who have some sense about them and can see beyond the political at this point in this time. And I can tell you that that's what's happening. That in the run-up to day X, in the run-up to the war actually intensifying, we're going to see more and more dovish language, like doves and hawks. They're going to be dovish language because, if they were to call attention to the fact that Ukraine just targeted a nuclear plant utilizing Western ISR, right? Utilizing, U.S. spy planes that are hovering around the Black Sea, then it would expose this phony baloney diplomatic facade. Yeah, that's what they're doing. There's some really weird things that are going on right now with our military and what we're doing over there. And if you're not paying attention, it looks like we're preparing for major conflict. So it would mess up your whole facade of thinking that everything is fine if you were to really look at what's really going on the ground, is basically what he's saying. You see, this is a higher level of analysis that, most people are just not going to be willing to entertain, because a lot of people, as well-meaning as they are, they don't want to know how bad the situation actually is. So they want, the Mickey Mouse narrative. But I'm not going to give you that to you. I'm not going to give that to you. In fact, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you the news as to what's really going on. The truth with a little t, because I'm not talking about the big universal omniscient truth. See, there's where his allusion is to the divine, intelligent designer. So maybe he's not just he is an agnostic, but maybe he's getting closer. Keep praying for him. Maybe he's getting closer to the realization of what the truth really is. Maybe he'll realize that it was a person in time and space, a few thousand years ago, that was opening the door of understanding beyond what is currently understood now as being, universal truth, or that tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which is that forbidden truth that masquerades as an angel of light. We don't want to follow that. We obviously want the real truth, right? So maybe he's got an allusion to that. Maybe God's drawing him. Let's just keep praying for Nate over at Canadian Prepper that he'll figure out what the truth is on a higher level, even than what he knows. You know, and I think God's using him because there's a lot of Christians that don't even get this level of understanding they should be having. They should be seeing and at least warning, sounding the alarm, and they're not. They're just playing churchianity and trying to make as much money as they can. It's kind of like a business to them. It's not about preparing people and equipping them and getting them ready for what's coming. It's all about them, their own little kingdoms that they're building here in church land. But he goes, that's another video altogether, talking about the whole God idea of what is truth. U.S. nuclear command plane in Greenland, the U.S. Navy E-6B Mercury, that is designed to maintain communications with nuclear-armed submarines in a conflict, was deployed to Panifk the air base. You see how it's all coming together. Trump, Greenland, Pufik, and I guess that's a base. Putin, the Arctic submarines. Yeah, because I think Putin or somebody said something about submarines and strategically being placed in that position. And that has to do with why Trump said that we were going to take over Greenland, because it was in our strategic interest. Remember all that talk? And then it says a couple days ago, he made us some comments about how our Arctic Arctic submarines have an advantage. And he didn't say what it was, of course, but there's all of this like telegraphing that is happening between Putin and Trump in the Russian media, because the Russian media right now is dead set on placating their population and making them think that they're going to have a peace summit with the United States. And nothing could be further from the truth, because they don't want people to freak out and to get in the way of the war. They're fine entertaining this, nonsense about Ukraine being the one and not being a proxy of the United States government, because that's kind of the way they're portraying it. They're trying to make it seem like, the United States is not involved. They're just trying to facilitate some kind of broker, some kind of deal. But all the while we're funneling, weapons through Europe back into Ukraine, and we're probably manning all their satellite, logistics when they go in there with their long-range weapons. That's all managed by the United States or some high-level NATO. There's no way that the Ukrainians could do that without that legit. And they already know this. But see, what Putin is doing is he's, like he said, he's placating his population. He's not wanting them to know how serious the situation is. And if you saw the video that I posted earlier today on my Telegram page from that correspondent that is embedded on the ground, on the front lines in Ukraine, on the Russian side, and you listen to that Russian high-level commander give his scenario and his synopsis of what's going on and how we are in World War III. In fact, the title is World War III, that we're in World War III right now. And that, I've never seen that on Patrick Lancaster's channel. He's never had any kind of statements like that ever. And he's been in all kinds of conflicts from the beginning of this war, the outbreaks of it, right there near the front lines mostly. He never really went in. I never saw him go right in directly in the front lines, but today, the video that was posted today, he was right there on the front lines in a bunker. And he was interviewing these high-level guys. And that's what they said, too. See, they're on the same page. They're looking at everything that we're looking at, too, on the other side. So this analysis from both sides, I think, is pretty clear. And it says, doesn't sound better when it being a proxy of the United States government. They're fine doing that for now because it's diplomatically instrumental for them to do so. That is to say that, the United States is not really involved. But the real deal is that we're putting these M6 or these B6 Mercury command and control planes in Greenland just a few days or a few weeks, I guess now, after Trump threatened to deploy forward deployed nuclear submarines. Now, why would you do that if you were saying what you were saying was true about peace? Right. So why is Trump putting out those submarines? Why is he putting up those command and control planes that are going to be directing those submarines? You see what I'm saying? So yeah, you're going to see the red carpet. You know, nothing scares me more than seeing Putin walk down a Western red carpet, because that means day X is near. It really does. It's the pacification paradox. Both sides are going to lie to their teeth, through their teeth, because it's better than having a bunch of screaming people running around, getting in the way while they're trying to get to the bunkers locked and loaded. While who's trying to get to the bunkers locked and loaded? Yeah, the high-level guys. And by the way, did you saw that Twitter post that I put on Telegram about 3 or 4 days ago, 5 days ago, where people are talking about how their military loved ones are telling them to get prepared for something big is about to happen? And there's confirmation in the comments too of other people saying the same thing that their loved ones are saying. I don't know. Does anybody here have any confirmation on that? Post it in our comments. But it goes on to say that we don't want a bunch of screaming people running around, getting in the way while they're trying to get to their bunkers locked and loaded. To be just blunt about it, experts are calling the move highly unusual, though the Navy insists that it's routine operations. Okay, this of course comes after Trump's ordering 2 nuclear submarines closer to Russia. Putin, on Russian submarines, he claims the following: that subs can dive beneath the Arctic ice, vanishing from radar. Our enemy has our military. Our enemy has our military says our military has an advantage. Now, I don't really understand what they mean by this, but maybe they mean that the Russians have more capabilities in this respect. I know that they have nuclear icebreakers in the Arctic, and they're certainly probably, yeah, in colder climates are certainly more capable in Arctic regions. And they will likely excel above and beyond the United States in that realm. But I am not a submarine expert. But apparently Putin has been making some statements about this, okay, and talking about how there is a military advantage with their submarines, and it somehow involves the Arctic, which again calls attention back to this whole obsession with Greenland, and now putting command and control nuclear planes there to give the launch codes to the United States. And you know, just remember this: decapitation strike is going to come like a lightning bolt when they attempt it. It's not going to come out of nowhere. Oh, I'm sorry, it's going to come out of nowhere, right? That's what I said. Suddenly. You know, be ready for suddenlies. It could happen at any moment. And it's not going to be, nobody's going to know. Oh, well, I heard some nuclear codes being given over, the transmissions, the military transmissions, and they're saying that there's the nuclear codes are being launched. No, they don't do that. They don't let everybody know what they're doing on public, accessible transmission lines like some people were saying on YouTube. Remember when that guy was telling everybody, "Oh, nuclear codes have been launched. Nukes are in the air," and everybody was freaking out. "Oh my gosh, nukes are in the air!" Everybody was calling, "Robert, come over to this channel. Their nukes are in the air. They've got the codes. They're listening to the back channels on the frequencies." No, when they launch, they're not going to have no public launch codes being trumpeted out for everybody to hear. It's going to be suddenly, and it's going to be without notice. So it goes on to say, I don't know how they're going to justify it to the population, because they've got everybody brainwashed into thinking and believing that what we're seeing right now, even the NAPO crowd is freaking out, both the Trump worshipers and the Trump deranged. The Trump deranged think it's the end of the world because Vladimir Putin came to visit in Alaska. People who are clear-eyed can see what's really going on. People who are with Trump and worship him think it's the best thing that's happened since sliced bread, and that he should get a Nobel Peace Prize. when in the shadows everything is escalating. For example, the U.S. just approved the sale of 3,300 ERAM missiles. These are, I think it's excessive range missiles. It's like an air-launched cruise missile, so these can go up to almost, they can reach Moscow almost. I think it's 450 kilometers. So these are going to be being given to Ukraine, I guess. So this is something that Biden never gave to them, and these things are inexpensive. So that means that they're going to mass produce them, and they're going to leverage these. Now, recently, of course, this news was cleverly front-run by the story that, oh yeah, we're not allowing Ukraine to target deep inside of Russia, and it was disclosed that in the last 2 months, the Russians are not allowing the U.S. intelligence, or that the Ukrainians are not allowed according to U.S. intelligence, right? What did he mean there? Oh, about going deeper in. They're not being provided with targeting data deep inside of Russia. So basically that's what was being portrayed, is that we're not helping them to launch their high technical weaponry and guide it in to the targets, because you need satellite for that. You need Starlink for that, right? That's why Russia had some pretty harsh words for Elon about Starlink, remember, a while back? Because Starlink is being used in all this too. And it says they're just saying that because the only way Ukraine can control its drones outside of the AI systems that they have, that they use topographical identification software in order to identify their targets, they're using Starlink. They're using American guidance systems for that. So the idea that, that they haven't been using it in the last 2 months, again, is more, it's just more BS, because they know that whatever they say now, Russia will go along with it because they don't want to expose the facade. So, yeah, Russia's going to continue to tell their population lies as we inch closer and closer to kinetic conflict, so that when it does happen, everybody is going to be surprised by the suddenly. It's going to be a suddenly moment when everybody wakes up to the reality that, yeah, there is no détente, there is no peace agreement, there is no security. The world has just woken up in a nightmarish dystopian hellscape that's probably going to lead to even worse weapons being launched against each other. Who knows how fast things can escalate when you're in the fog of war, right? The fog of war. But they've got their bunkers. They don't care. The Pentagon is going to authorize use against, and I'm sure they care, but I don't think people realize. I think there are some that do high level know where this is going, but the average lower level, echelon compartmentalized government people, they don't really know what this all means, and they're probably just doing their job, not really seeing the big picture either. They might want to listen to Canadian Prepper or myself, right, to figure it out. But anyways, go on. It says Pentagon is going to authorize the use of Russian territory on a case-by-case basis. Of course, Trump said in 2 weeks, if the situation isn't resolved, then they're going to have to potentially do something else. What is that something else? He didn't really specify what. Of course, that is consistent with the original 50-day ultimatum timeline that was laid out almost 50 days ago. Now Ukraine is warning Belarus that these upcoming very large Zapad 2025 military exercises. And so what's happening now is they're getting ready they're doing these SNAP military exercises in Belarus, the Russians, and they're using those hypersonic, indefensible, nuclear capable ground missiles, mobile, right there on the edge of Europe. And Ukraine is basically saying, hey, what's going on here? This is not good. These are going to feature the Orek hypersonic missiles that are missiles that, of course, can defeat pretty much any defense system. At least the ones that are the ones that fired off last November, right after Trump was elected. Remember that? I remember that. And of course, this is relating to backing out of the INF treaty, and a lot of the intermediate nuclear missile stuff is linked, nuclear forces. So you have Trump backed out of the INF treaty. Russia, after Trump gets elected, they launch an intermediate nuclear capable missile in a demonstrative show of force. And then, of course, they back out of the INF treaty. Then 1 week later, the Ukrainians unveil an intermediate, possibly nuclear capable missile, because we're talking about something that can carry a payload of 2,500 pounds. All right. Now they could, and they could have created that themselves. Some people are saying it's derived from an old Soviet model, but I would suspect that they would have had some sort of plausible deniability to make it look like that. But I'm certain that the internal guidance systems and all of that, all of the, more fancy, sophisticated circuitry is likely inspired by Western people who enabled them to manufacture it. Probably so. He's probably right on that. Probably in a Western country masquerading as Ukraine on video, right? So they don't want to anyway say, oh yeah, these were formed by, U.S. technology and U.S. manufacturing, or some manufacturing on the border right there with Ukraine and Poland, or just right outside of Ukraine. It's all about the way they portray it in the news. He goes on to say that, so Belarus hosts tactical nuclear weapons, and they're getting ready to do these big exercises in September. Yeah, because Putin's putting nuclear weapons in Belarus. And it doesn't really look like much is changing in terms of diplomacy now, or diplomatically now. They're saying that they're not going to negotiate with Zelensky again. So, we're right back to square one. Everybody's just buying time. Just like I said, Black Sea tension is ramping up. So we had a Poseidon, P8A Poseidon that flew abnormal anti-sub patrols near Crimea. And this Crimea thing is about to go up. So you watch. The next big dust up is going to be in Crimea. And we also have an RQ-48 Global Hawk strategic drone returning to the Black Sea after a month of absence. So we have manned and unmanned planes flying very close to Crimea. And who is in control of those planes? You guessed it, the United States. The ones who apparently are rolling out the red carpet for Vladimir Putin. Multiple unmanned boats near Snake Island in Odessa. That's a buildup suggesting that there may be an imminent strike on Crimea once again. Ukraine drones struck a nuclear power plant in Kursk, damaging the transformer and forcing reactor 3 to unload by 50%. Although radiation background corresponds to natural levels, there was also witnesses who claimed that in the Leningrad region, that at the Leningrad nuclear power plant, there was an overnight drone barrage, and explosions were heard across multiple oblasts, and the oblast which is home to this nuclear power plant and close to it. This is one of the largest nuclear power plants inside of Russia, supplying much of St. Petersburg grid. So even near misses calculate a pretty extreme escalation risk all around. And we've just seen countless targets hit over the weekend. And not to mention, or not just in Russia, you guys see what happened in Louisiana? So within the span of 48 hours, we had an American facility go up in smoke, which I'm not sure that was an accident. That's what I said. You have one in Iran, two in Iran. You have several in Russia and several in Ukraine. And these are all energy facilities. So the energy war is on. And surprisingly, I wouldn't be surprised if oil just plummeted, because nothing makes sense anymore. And he mentions the plunge protection team. You would expect oil to go skyrocketing through the roof, but it will eventually. Once it's really obvious that it's kinetic, I think it'll go skyrocketing. But for right now, it's probably still going to stay low. But the plunge protection team is on the case, as they know if they that if the price of oil does go up, then inflation goes up, and correspondingly, and they don't want that to happen. Kim Jong-un is ordering a rapid buildup of his nuclear arsenal, citing U.S. South Korean nuclear drills, and they put loudspeakers back on the border again. They briefly removed them, but the North Koreans have put them on the border again. So that's what's going on there. Hundreds of drones overnight, striking oil terminals, refineries, and strikes across power plants, nuclear power plants everywhere. It's just total pandemonium on the front lines. President Carney went to Kiev to visit with the Ukrainian leader on the Ukrainian Independence Day. And an interesting thing to point out is that one of these guys wants to take all your guns, and the other guy wants to give you a gun. But there's a catch. You got to go and die in a trench if they give you a gun. So that's your choice. Your choice in the future. Living under tyranny where you can't have or own a firearm, or if you do get a firearm, you're probably going to be in the trenches because your butt is going to be conscripted for war. Yep. According to Sergei Lavrov on Zelensky, Putin is ready to sign with the president of Ukraine, not a clown. So they basically are not acknowledging that Zelensky is even a legitimate president. They say that they want to get a new president, but that's all smoke and mirrors, because if he's a puppet of the NATO agenda, it doesn't matter. You're still dealing with NATO power players, whoever's in there. So really, you're not even talking to Zelensky anyway, so it's just an excuse. Just an excuse to kick the can a little farther down the road, is what he's saying. So, man. The U.S. has stopped sharing Ukrainian intelligence with the Five Eyes, as it's seen as a tilt towards potential normalization with Russia. This is just the dumbest thing. Look, if you believe that, I don't know, man. They're going to say things like this because they want to create this illusion that Trump and Putin are making amends. It's not happening. Series of blasts, K to trans highways in Iran, new fire in Kamsha here, suspected sabotaging of and targeting nuclear link sites. And the Ayatollah has once again rejected direct talks with Washington and vows to resist pressure. Now the Iranians have got wise and have said that, oh, yeah, our nuclear enriched uranium material is buried in a bunker, so it's buried in the bottom of a fort out of this facility, and we can't access it. They finally got wise to say that so that they can play along with this temporizing game that the United States is using as justification for backing off the Iran war. So initially the Iranians were saying, we know where our enriched uranium is. We have access to it. Now they're saying, oh, yeah, it's buried in the bottom of a fort, with hopes that, you know, the U.S. and Israel won't start their campaign again. There are reports suggesting that Russia may be delivering drones to Venezuela. Oh, great. That ought to be interesting. 2,000 drones to Venezuela. And considering Cuba and Nicaragua, this is Venezuela surrounded by a flotilla of U.S. warships. That's pretty much, yep, that's it. That's it, man. I mean, that's it. As we said yesterday, game over. Game over, man. It's game over. They mostly come out at night, mostly, talking about the zombies. This is it. Now what are we going to do? Game over, man. That's a meme for those who don't know. What's going on, fettuccine? Oh, I'm really hungry now. I think I want some fettuccine. Honey, do you got any fettuccine on the stove over there? I'm really hungry. I could use some fettuccine. I don't know. I just want that white sauce, that fettuccine white sauce with chicken in it. Yes, I'm kind of hungry. Burning Man was hit with a massive sandstorm. Is Burning Man going on right now? Is that what's going on? Is Burning Man happening right now? Is that what's going on? Gosh, that's just absolutely crazy stuff going on over there. Let's see when Burning Man happens. Oh yeah. Why would anybody even want to go to Burning Man? Really, seriously, like who really wants to go to Burning Man? So it starts today all the way to September 1st. You know that place is cursed. I'll bet you something goes down there again. You remember what happened the last few years. Game over, man. All right, guys. So anybody have any questions or comments or anything they want to share in the comment section, just post it right now. Definitely keep us on the bookmark. Make sure you're subscribed to our Telegram page because we break down the news in real time there very regularly, all throughout the day and night. You're going to get all your information there in real time because we monitor lots and lots of channels. Not to mention the fact that when we do go live, we post and we let everybody know. Now, you might want to have a redundant backup. You can either be connected to our Buy Me a Coffee link because you can follow us there. You can also follow us on Patreon, and you can also support us on both of those channels too, monthly. You could either follow us free if you don't have any money, and I know and I understand there's a lot of people suffering, a lot of people without. This is a very terrible economy. I know a lot of people don't have money these days, especially my viewers, because most of you are poor. We're trying to get some more rich people over here because we need some support too. So any rich people out there that find that this is interesting and maybe worthy of getting it further out to the masses might want to give a little donation. That would also be helpful. But we do minister to the poor on a regular basis, and I minister to myself because I consider myself to be one of the poor. I don't want to be one of the rich. I just want to have enough. That's all. Not too much, not too little, just enough to get through. That's all we need. We don't want to be a glutton. We're not here trying to get rich. I'm not here to try to get rich, just to pay the bills. That's all. And hey, a little extra pushing along the message. Facilitate that message, getting it farther out there. So anybody out there that's got a little extra, send it our way because we can put it to use. We definitely can. Freedom says, get out of those high thithers in the stream. What? Gotta get the high tithers. Yeah, tithers. The tithers. Yeah, where are those high tithers at? Come on, we need a few good tithers. Monthly tithers. Any good monthly tither? We got a couple of guys that are pretty regular. And now that we did our little campaign, we had a couple people that, did a couple months, but we need to make sure that we retain and grow because people will give and then that's it once in a while, but we need regular support, consistent, repetitive. So anyways, Dimitri Duduman says it all over. Yes, I think Dimitri Duduman is definitely bringing it. He brought in the message. I think a lot of people might say is a little extreme, but I think that he might have been maybe tapping into some future events for where America is going to be. And if this unrest that we see brewing here in America boils over, I'll say that we're probably at that moment that he predicted. Because he did say it would be preceded by a bunch of civil unrest within the country. That when these things begin to happen, it's going to happen concurrently with that civil unrest. And when you say civil unrest, you're talking about rioting, troops being involved in domestic problems. That's about the time when he said it happens. And he named off all the countries that would be colluding secretively to bum rush us all at once. I hope that's not going to happen, but you might want to take a listen to Dimitri Duduman or at least read his book. Whether he was delusional, beside himself, or whether he really did hear from God, you better figure that one out. And I say the same about me. Some people may think I'm, out there. But, everything I've been telling you guys is happening the way it's been. I've been telling you guys a lot of this, and a lot of people thought I was a little cuckoo for a while, but just like my mom. And this is my own family member. This is my mom. She's probably listening to me right now, and I hope she is. I hope my mom is sitting there listening to me right now. You remember, Mom, when you said that you were sitting back laughing at me with all my brothers, laughing at me, telling people to go buy masks because masks were going to disappear. And then all of a sudden when they disappeared, you were like, oh, well, maybe he knew something. And then he started saying all the food was going to disappear. And, and it ended up happening. Food disappeared. Now, I'm telling you right now, what's coming is worse. What's coming is going to be worse, and it's going to surprise people even more. Shocking. Maybe you're getting another little heads up from me once again. It probably wouldn't be a good idea to mock and to make fun. I always like that. That kid cartoon. It reminds me of. Did you guys ever see that? It's a movie. It's called Sneedsville. How many of you guys out there have seen that kids movie called Sneedsville? It was about everything's fake. The city is made out of plastic, and they like it that way. And they're all kind of in like a little smart city.
Time for coffee.
Holy cow, that just scared me to death. It was loud. I got to turn down my speakers. Who was that? Angela. Right on. Thank you so much. See that? That's how it works. There you go. And I got to turn this down because if I have my speakers up, it's real loud. But it's called Sneedsville, and they're living in like a smart city, and everything's fake. The trees are fake. Everything's fake. And there's a guy that's like the evil villain that controls the city. And he is up in a blimp because what he does is he sells fresh air. Everything is like polluted. So he has to, he bottles fresh air and he sells it to people so that they can breathe fresh air. Anybody ever seen that movie? Hey, Slinky Moon, are you laughing at it because I got scared? Slinky Moon says they finally take you serious. Your parents finally. I know they take me serious, but they still don't like the fact that I don't know. It's kind of funny. But are you going to bring the app alerts back? I do send alerts to the app. You don't get them on your email because I do send app alerts. How many people are on the app? The Blazing Press app. The Blazing Press app is still there, but it's in free mode. It's not in the paid version because we were paying $100 a month for that. We couldn't afford that anymore. But there's about 6,000 people that are on that app, and that app I still do send out direct alerts. So how many of you guys still get your alerts on that app? Now, a question I have for those who are on the Buy Me a Coffee followers. I got friends, and then there are followers, and then there's supporters. And there's about, I think there was like 500 or 600 people on there. When I send out a message, does anybody get an email from Buy Me a Coffee, a direct email? I'm kind of curious. Just if it doesn't work and I'm doing this for wasting time, I want to know. Is anybody getting any alerts through Buy Me a Coffee? Tell me in the comment section if it works. That movie where everyone is black and white and the people turn to color. No, I don't think that was it. I don't think that's the one I'm talking about. It's called, let me see if I can find it here. Sneedsville. At Sneedsville. Da, 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 da. Needsville. Let's see if I can find it here. Why is that? Why you would think it would be on YouTube, but it's. Am I spelling it wrong? I must be spelling this thing wrong. Steedsville? Is that what it's called? Nope, that's not it. Oh no, wait. Maybe it's not called Steedsville. It's called the heck was the name of that movie? Sneedville. Yeah, that's it. Sneedville. Yeah. Okay. So it's Dr. Oh, the Lorax. Okay, it's called the Lorax. It was a Dr. Seuss cartoon. Dr. Seuss, Lorax. Okay, so Lorax. Okay, so and it had Eddie. It had Danny DeVito. What's his name? The little short dude. He played. Or maybe it wasn't DeVito. Maybe it was. The cast of Lorax. Let's see who that was. I wanted to show you this one part. This is yeah. So Danny DeVito was the Lorax, and then Betty White was the Granny. She played Granny, and then the Onceler was Ed Helms. Let's see who else. Taylor Swift played Audrey. She played the love interest of Ted. That was funny. But anyway, so the part that I was trying to find was the part where the mother comes in. And she moves in after he becomes successful. The mother comes and says, "Oh, hold on. Let me see if this is it." If I play this, it'll probably be copyrighted. I probably shouldn't play it. Let me just see if there's the part. Yeah. Yeah. This is the part I love, man. It's so funny because it's so true. I was just trying to motivate you. Let's see.
Big, suddenly successful son. Mwah. We always knew you'd make it, Onesie.
We'd always knew you'd make it, Onesie. We knew you were smart.
Right?
Hey, I love this guy.
He's really rich now. Like, he's got lots of money. Like, oh my gosh, now his mom comes back to him.
But you always said I wouldn't amount to anything, remember?
Oh, hush your mouth. I was just trying to motivate you.
I was just trying to motivate you. Oh, you hush your mouth now. We're moving in. We're moving in. and then they help him make all kinds of money. And they cut down all the trees. And then it becomes a barren wasteland. And everything becomes plastic. But they like it that way. But anyways, la-di-da. Okay, so the coffee's down too low. What does that mean? Turn the coffee. Oh, the coffee was down too low. Oh shoot! Did you just do another one? Let me see. Did I make it? Did I miss it? Did I miss a coffee? I didn't see it. Hold on. I got to give props to whoever it was. Did I miss one? Here, I'll put it back up. I'm going to scare myself to death here. Aha. Yeah, it won't let me look. Okay, here's how I find out. And make sure you send a message. If you do send a coffee, okay, here we go. So, yeah. So, Angela, you bought twice. Okay, so what she said was, Angela said, okay, Angela, you didn't put any comment in there. You can actually add a comment. So, Angela, awesome. Thank you very much. Very awesome. Oh, she put love you all. There you go. She said love you all on the first one. Now, the second coffee that you bought, no message. But my message to you is, I love you back. Love you back. Thank you. Yep, I turned it up so everybody can hear now. But anywho's, they wanted the jump scares. I know, that's why I turned it down so it wouldn't scare me to death. I actually had muted it on the stream too, so I muted it on both, but I took it off, so just in case somebody wants to scare me again. Thank you. Let's see, what else? You know, that movie, The Lorax, did have some good points to it, even though it was kind of an environmentalist kind of movie, environmentalism. There was some good principles in there, but yeah, probably not the best. There's always a mixture when you start looking at the programming and what they're trying to communicate and teach the children. You got to go back in and reprogram. I say that because really, it is a disciplined way of thinking, and there is a program. Now, obviously, program that we teach leads to freedom and for making wise decisions, so it's not a bad thing. But when you're being programmed to do something wrong, you're basically being programmed to do, be enslaved. You know, you don't want that. You don't want to be programmed to be enslaved. You wanted to see me jump? I was wise to that. I turned it down. But I did turn it back up. So if anybody wants to make me jump, I turn it back up. How's that? You can make me jump. What is the coffee link? There should be there. Let me see. Is there a coffee link in there? Yeah, on-air coffee. There you go. But make sure you fill it out and say something so that everybody can see it. You got to say, hey, hey ho. Let me hear you say, hey ho. Right there. What do they call it? One thing I noticed that, it's like that song, even as Christians, we have mindsets that are given to a little more of a self-serving kind of ease lifestyle. And we justify that by saying we're being, smart and wise, and worldly wisdom is what we justify or make our appeal to as saying that this is the way that is right for us, right? But God might be having a different idea of what is right. And maybe that's why, people go through trials, and things happen that throw your world into a tizzy and into a chaotic situation, because God's trying to get your devotion. He's trying to get your attention, wholehearted attention, not just a half-hearted kind of, where we just are lukewarm or oh, we might be more than lukewarm. Well, we're maybe 70%. We're not lukewarm. We're 70%. But still, I think the Lord is jealous. He wants the whole you. He wants everything. He doesn't want just part of you. He wants the full commitment. How would you like it if your marriage was only half-hearted, or maybe even, and I think that it's important to see the big picture, because life is not always perfect anyway. I mean, we're not always going to be 100% all the time. And I think God knows that. And that's where grace comes in, right? We got grace, but there should be a push, and that's what repentance is. It's a push to being, as Jesus said, be perfect even as my Father in heaven is perfect. I don't think that means perfect in the sense of being God. I think it just means perfect in the sense of being whole. You don't have to be fragmented. You don't have to be broken all the time on the side of the road. There's a brokenness that leads to wholeness, but there's also, it's the same idea as when Jesus said, fall upon the rock and you'll be broken, lest the rock falls upon you and you be crushed to powder. So do you want to be crushed to powder, or do you want to be broken? Brokenness is a good thing. A broken and contrite heart thou will not despise. So in your weakness, you're made strong. You're perfected in God's strength when you pick up a cross, when you pick up a way of living that might be contrary to the world's way of thinking, but it actually leads to strength. And it's not your strength, it's the Lord's strength. So that brokenness is a prelude to a resurrection. But if you're a person that wants to go your own way, even as a Christian, you might be just giving God lip service and saying, yeah, Lord, whatever, and I'll go to church and I'll do some things that are good, but you're still going your own way, motivation-wise. The whole you is going to be crushed. You're going to go through a crushing, and that crushing is to gain your allegiance back so that you understand the way. This is the way, walking in it. Give yourself wholly to these teachings so that you can walk in his ways and keep in step with his Spirit and know his path and be consistent. And that's when you become, you sync your life, your heart and your mind, and everything becomes one. And then when you're one, you're whole. Then the Bible says your eye is single, your whole body will be full of light. But then it says if that's not the case, then your eye is evil, your whole body is full of darkness. And then it says if the light within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? Now, there's a light that's actually dark. Jesus made it very clear. If the light within you is darkness, then it's of greatest of darkness, because anything that masquerades as light or as you've got it, you're a cut above, you're a good citizen, you're making good money, you've got a good persona, facade, everybody thinks you're doing good, you're a good Christian, you're representing Jesus the right way, upstanding citizen, but your heart is far from God. And that's what God is really caring about. That's what he really looks at. He doesn't care what your image is. He only cares whether or not the light within you is truly light. But if that light is darkness, then you're of all men to be pitied. You're of that darkness is the greatest of darkness. It's so much greater than the guy that's homeless in a gutter, because he understands that he's in need of some redemption and some help, hopefully. Well, sometimes they're not either, but the people that are down and out are usually the ones that are closer to the physician. They recognize they need a physician. Jesus said, I didn't come to those who don't need a doctor. I'm here to help people that need a doctor, that recognize they need a doctor. He didn't come to the rich who have everything, that don't need anything. He came to the poor. And that's the message that we're talking about. It is a message to the poor. The acceptable year. That's what he comes to preach, right? That's what we do here every day. Amen. Is my thing still going here? Because I seem to be buffering here. Let me see. Am I buffering here? Am I still on? Hello? Oh, yeah. It's weird. It said it was buffering there. Okay, so I am still on. Romans chapter 3:23. Slinky monkey. Let me see what that is. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Yes. For all have sinned. There is none righteous, no, not one. There is none righteous, no, not one, it says. Now, if you receive Christ and you are born from above, and you put on Christ as you do put on a garment, you put off your old man, and you do by the Spirit put to death the deeds of the flesh, it says then you will live. You're going to walk in the way of righteousness that is truly a righteousness that is not your own. It is a righteousness that's imputed to you and is also worked in you. You know, it is God that is at work within you, both to will and to work of his good pleasure. All you have to do is work it out. All you got to do is look to God and trust. The key is trusting. You know, you don't get God's righteousness by working. You get God's righteousness and his power and wisdom by faithing it, by having faith. What is faith? Faith is the substance of things that are hoped for, the evidence of things that are not seen. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. And what does that faith do? It is a free gift. For by grace are you saved through faith. How do you receive grace? God's unmerited favor. What does grace stand for? God's riches at Christ's expense. How do you receive it? Through faith. For by grace are you saved through faith, and this not of yourselves. It is a gift of God, not of works. You didn't work for it. You didn't earn it. You didn't deserve it. Because if you did, you could boast. You could tell God, oh, yeah, I earned this, God. I overcame my sinful nature. I am a God. I'm able to redeem myself. I don't need Jesus' cross. I don't need Jesus' work. I don't need your help. But I come to you now as a perfect man because I've basically fixed myself. You're going to be rejected. You're going to be rejected because that's what the Pharisees did. They perfected their holiness through the laws of God that they somehow interpreted, for their own, selfish and glory, for their own glory, and they put themselves on the throne. Remember, it says they sat in the seat of Moses. They were there interpreting the law. They came as religious overseers and administrators, not only legally and civilly, but also spiritually. And they came to ultimately crucify Jesus, who was the author of life, who was life itself. And they rejected and missed it because they were so far from understanding what truth really is. And I don't want to be one of those people that misses it, do you? As a believer, as a Christian, because a lot of Christians are walking as Pharisees did back in the old day. They're doing the same thing. There's no difference. How many of you guys understand what I'm talking about? If you understand what I'm talking about, say amen. Say amen. Say hey, amen. Amen, guys. Amen. Amen, Diana. Good to see you, Diane. Molly, good to see you. Slinky Moon, awesome. Killer Kyle, Tim Johnson, The Watchman, A-Dub, A Fettuccine. Man, I hope my wife's making some fettuccine. I don't know why. I'm just so hungry for some fettuccine. I don't know why. I just got this desire to eat fettuccine. Haven't had it in a while. Some chicken fettuccine. Yes. Some Italiano. All right, Molly. God bless all you guys. I better get. I know we've just been hanging out here, and it's getting late. I got to go connect back with the fam. So, Arnold, God bless. Get to that pillow. Get to that pillow and have yourself a nice, beautiful sleep. peaceful sleep. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Thank you, Jesus, for everything in this house. You bless everyone that's here, that's listening, that's hearing, that knows and seeks and asks, that you would answer, that they would know you're true, and that you would reveal yourself clearly to them in their experience, in their real-time, everyday lives. That intervention that only you can do. That is truly a miracle from above, greater than anything AI could ever do, any technologies that we have made for ourselves as filled with our own estimation of who we think we are as gods. But Lord, thank you that you are the God Most High that sits upon the throne, and that you will reveal yourself to be the true and living God that did create all things and inhabits eternity, and that you've placed eternity within the hearts of man that only you can fill. The gap and the vacuum that only you can fill, and nothing else can. And I pray that you fill that vacuum in every human heart that's here, and then you would equip them and prepare them and send them with a message that they have for the little bit of time that we all have left. And we know that time is short. How short, we don't know, but we know that we are getting closer in accordance with all the things that were given to us prophetically. We know that you have given us a heads up, just as you did many generations that have gone on before. And Lord, preparing us, I do believe, for this last days and the last moments of time. We thank you, Lord, for that great preparation and that great ministry that you've given to us. In Jesus' mighty name, we pray. Amen. All right. Thank you guys for hanging out. God bless. And we'll be talking to you guys again real soon. Amen. Amen. God bless you guys.